This could also be used in my next video. This is also true, and I feel like the second comment actually kind of proves that people are maturing later, even though they say it's not true, because they kind of go over the fact that people are coddled. Although still, the reality is that people are traumatized, abused, and infantilized, and then the coddling is a side thing with a separate type of family system. But anywho, there's some weird thought, well, actually that's not even really the thing I want to read. Although people are maturing much later than we used to, so they're sad. This even goes back into the reality that teenagers, and really anybody who's 10 plus, but especially 13 plus, are children. Anybody who's 14 to 16 is a man or a woman. But people have been so trapped in infantilized to keep them in abuse situations or just act like they're not as capable as they are. And it causes a lot of issues, and this is why, especially in the West, like, people are pretty stunted. I mean, people won't even let their 20-year-olds and 18-year-olds and 10-year-olds and stuff, and even 7-year-olds cook because, quote-unquote, they may burn the house down. The kid can do whatever you teach them to do. A 5-year-old can drive if you teach them. A 4-year-old can drive if you teach them. But people have become really warped, and this is why nobody can do anything for themselves. As much as people want to run around saying, I'm independent, and that's why I'm not broken, the different things that people say, if you only know how to survive off the government system, and you can't go out in the woods and hunt, you're not independent. But that's a whole other video. But anyways, anyhow. Teenagers are not children, and realistically, human beings are built to try to survive in any situation. We're not built or wired to accept death. So yes, if you throw like a kid out in the woods, they will survive. And this can go to my next video because I'm going to talk about Southern culture and how they act like street kids can't exist because people are so used to their Jezebel mom and Jezebel grandma, whoever else, holding them captive in the family system and not being allowed to leave and try to do anything for themselves until 40 plus. So you're held captive your whole life and told you can't survive without your abuser, and you're not allowed to leave and get a job or go to school or any of that until 40. And by then it's about too late anyways, or at least that's how a lot of people feel because their health is probably bad, they've been torn apart, etc., etc. But all these laws are put in place to hold people captive in abuse, and they don't benefit anybody. So my next video, I'm going to go into, I think I already made a video talking about this, but I'm going to go into how, like, people, or certain people feel like there's no way that I'm younger than, like, 38 or something, because of this weird mindset that people have that street kids can't exist because you can't take care of yourself under 35. But when I'm in places that are used to street kids, people often assume that I'm, like, 11 or 12, which I'm not. I tell people I'm 25 anyways, but then, of course, there's also the whole not in my America, that doesn't happen in America, that only happens in third world country stuff, because people think.
So, I'm going to edit in, a screen recording from my most recent Dronafile video, because somewhere near the end I started talking about people assuming that street kids are people assuming that street kids are way older than they are sometimes because of the whole not in my America complex, which goes along with people living in La La Land, lying to themselves to be able to go to sleep at night, and overall just pride. The idea that things that happen everywhere don't happen in America, and the idea that things that only or mostly happen in America don't happen here because they're quote-unquote for third world countries. In fact, it reminds me of a meme I seen somewhere where the caption said, Americans doing something that's very American that only happens in America, and then Americans will say, quote unquote, what are we, a bunch of Asians? So yeah, that really is like an American culture type thing and mindset. Like, I've even had someone tell me before that anybody that's saying that they were homeless at 13 in America is a nutcase and stuff like that. Even though there's people that have been homeless since 7 and 8 getting kicked out and thrown in jail for being kicked out in America. And just like I talk about in, I don't know if it's the minor complex. I mean, no, not minor complex. I don't know if it's the minor crisis videos, but I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the Why Americans Hate Melanated video that, crap, what was I about to say? I don't even really remember what I was about to say, but pretty much, I know I was gonna get into the whole, out of sight, out of mind thing. So, like, Americans feel like because you lock somebody up and send them back home, or you throw them in some institution, that takes away the fact that they're homeless and being abused. The unsafe living environment is being homeless. The institution, if you're in an institution, you are homeless. That's not a home. And I mean any institution, because it's all the same. But Americans don't get that, and people like to play with the definitions of words, just like how the Ramco institutions aren't seen as trafficking, even though they are, because people like to play with the definitions of things. So, yeah. And then, of course, with the Melanated thing, or that video, I mentioned how, like, people's issues with channels like this, because all interview channels are predatory. Me and other people that point out things like I point out have been saying this since the beginning, since like some of the earliest channels that walked around recording homeless people started. And was it Tommy G? No, I don't think it was that dude. I think I'm getting him mixed up with somebody else, because I think, or maybe no, was it Tommy G and then Tommy Craze? Because I think one of them makes music videos, but I think it was another one that like would go to poor places and like record people and have people, especially like young kids, doing things that would probably get them in trouble when they were already in bad enough situations. But I can't even really remember, but like all of it has always been predatory. But it's still like Americans just don't want our dirty laundry out there. That's why we really hate this media that's coming out, that's showing the things that really go on here. Like crap, even beyond Scared Straight, Dr. Phil, which, as I've always said, media like that is a part of the cash for kids system and human cash cow systems. It takes people's abuse situations and MK Ultra and makes it other people's entertainment and popcorn. Because as I said, what this makes me think about is the saying, we're not laughing with you, we're laughing at you. Although you're not laughing at all, but people are laughing at your abuse situation, talking about how quote unquote bad and crazy you are, and your whole life and traumatic experiences are other people's TV show, pretty much. Girls incarcerated, all that, all of it's the same. And all of it also has aired out America's dirty laundry. From the breaking the code, silencing, and even the thing that happened before that, I'm pretty sure, with Paris Hilton. Because I remember it was actually a girl named Emery Hilton who went through AG/Gate cash for kids system, or school system branch of the cash for kids system abuse as well, who I knew in, I think it was 5th grade, although of course they were separated, and then I was in AG testing as well, but another side. But anywho, I met her in 5th grade, and she's the one who actually told me about Paris Hilton and about how that's the situation I was in, and that was before like the cash for kids system stuff really got bad. Although when she told me this, I was 14 at the time though, so this was like a few years later. But still, Paris Hilton and Daniel Bergoli / Catch Me Outside girl, breaking code, silence goes hand in hand. I feel like that stuff even kind of like relates to the whole Ally Carter thing, although of course it's kind of different stuff, but I mean it's all different forms of MK Ultra and experiments and stuff like that. But there's definitely different sides to it. But either way, my point of saying all this is that people rather like pretend that things aren't what they are. And at the end of the day, a lot of people don't really care anyway. So I guess this could be like my opening. These things happen all the time, but pretty much due to pride, people pretend that they don't. And so now I can get into like the main point of people you should watch out for when you're laying low, or you're a street kid, or you're homeless in general. And some of these things will happen more often if you're a woman, because like someone said to me before, people always feel that women have somewhere to go, and when they find out that that's not true, it messes with their head and makes them feel some type of way, which will make them be mad at you pretty much. Which that's not word for word, but that's like my version of what was said, because I don't really remember exactly what the person said. But yeah, so there's that. And then what was I getting? Oh yeah, so let me just go into the first thing. People that approach you and say things like, I know your parent is worried about you, and I know I'd be worried about my kid, and my parents would be worried about me, and I know that like somebody out there cares about you and you're not alone in the world. And it's like, why do they think they know so much about other people's situations, for one? That's one thing that could be said from the get-go. But it's like, people like that are very dangerous, and unfortunately a lot of people, well, yeah, I mean, there are a good amount of people like that. And the funny thing about it is that most of these people have been or are being abused themselves. They just have cognitive dissonance. But that's kind of besides the point. The point is mostly you focusing on you and your safety. People like this are, of course, the type of people that will probably call the police on you and try to figure out where they can get you, where you're quote-unquote supposed to be at, and you're quote-unquote safe. And what else could I say with that? They just live in a la-la land pretty much. And it even goes into adultism as well. Because people feel like you should just be where you're quote-unquote supposed to be at, which is with parents or family. And one of the craziest things about these sideways comments that people make, which honestly, these people are really demonic agents that are just sent to say stupid stuff to you to make you feel some type of way or to annoy you. Or maybe even to put you at danger if they call the police or something. But overall, I don't even know what I was about to say, I'm not gonna lie. I'll put it in the description if I remember. So next thing, trying to think of another example. I've mentioned this plenty of times before. Let me hope you lunatics are good for this, but there's going to be a lot of people who do stuff like this that aren't necessarily let me help you lunatics, because for somebody to be a let me help you lunatic, at least in my eyes, they're typically, well, not typically, they're really always going to be a woman. Like, realistically, men aren't really going to care that much about other people's kids and stuff like that. So if a dude is like really doing like let me help you lunatic type stuff, he probably just wants to like have a sexual relationship with you, because typically men really don't care that much. But anywho, what was the next thing with that? I'm trying to remember what I was about to say, because I started listening to background noise, which is the HVAC unit, I think. But okay, hold up. Oh yeah, but anywho, people that like just want to get a lot of info out of you, and they feel like they deserve to get information out of you because you're a quote-unquote child and different stuff like that, which a lot of these things do revolve around adultism. And so I'm really absent-minded right now, but I think it's because of my blood sugar. What was I gonna say with that? Well, guys, I'm just gonna warn you now. If you can digest and fully break down fat and protein, switch to keto. But anywho, so people that come up on you saying things like, who are you and what's your name and what's your first name and what's your full last name and how do you spell your first name and where do you come from and how old are you and when's your birthday and when was the last time you, I don't know, went to school and stuff like that. Watch out for people like that. Typically, they're going to try to, like, do some research to figure out, like, who or where your family is and to try to get you sent back somewhere. And this does not, like, how old you are doesn't matter. Although, typically, ageism is going to be really bad if you're under 30, but it lasts until you're at least 40. Like, I typically tell people around here that I'm 25 and I've still had jezebel, like quote-unquote black women especially, still do the whole, well, you're a child still and stuff like that. And it's like, you really can't win with these types of people. And it's never you're a child, quote-unquote, which would really be under 10, so I should take care of you. It's you're a child, so you deserve to be abused by somebody somewhere and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say earlier that I forgot. I was going to also mention the fact that being in foster care is being homeless and being trafficked, and you're going to be living outside pretty often, and you're probably going to be stuck homeless for like the rest of your life for like a lot of foster kids, even before they age out, to be honest. And so it's like another really disrespectful thing about people walking up on somebody doing the whole, I know there's somebody somewhere that you're supposed to be with right now. That could really like for one, just them saying that to the wrong person could obviously cause issues in general. But like, imagine walking up to somebody who's been in foster care their whole life, who was kidnapped from their family or never met their family, and their name has been changed and they don't know how to even find their parents or siblings or whatever. And you walk up to them and say some bullcrap like that. Especially a foster kid who either knows that their family didn't give a crap about them or has been conditioned to believe that their family never wanted them, even if they did. People don't even think because they really don't care. Because realistically, society... I got sidetracked because, like, a bird started making some noises. But society has control issues because society is a cult. Everything is a cult, to be honest. So adultism is about control as well. Like, even the anti-runaway, and even if you get kicked out or something, or even if you or somebody you know reports your situation to CPS, people will be like, well, how dare you do something like that to your parents? Which is funny, because then when you run away, people say, well, if you really want to help, you would just walk into CPS custody. Like, that's even how that works. But anywho, because people are weird. It's like, people want you where they want you. They want you doing what they want you to do. They want you living with who they want you to live with. And then it's also them assuming that your parents even have a place for you to live at. It's them assuming that your parents are even still alive, which, as I mentioned before, no, actually I don't know, maybe I did. One of the mindsets with this as well is that if you're under 40, your parents are most likely still alive, so you definitely aren't really quote-unquote homeless because you have somewhere to go because your parents are still alive. So, especially where I am now, there's this idea that either I did something to get kicked out, or I just left and I'm hiding from somebody and stuff like that. So, those are the two main mindsets, as well as the people that believe that I'm like secretly 38 or 39 or something, because due to what I mention all the time, which is that the whole thing with quote-unquote black people especially, but this is really common like with a lot of people, but I know especially due to like just the generational curses over true Yasharel, like people are so used to being held captive by their jezebelic mom and grandma, maybe even dad or grandpa or whoever, that they never leave their family system. They're trapped in their family system, probably being told they're schizophrenic and retarded their whole life. And if they ever do get out, they get out when they're about in their late 40s, and then they finally get to work their first job because they're no longer being told, you'll never be able to live without me, you'll never be able to work a job, by their Jezebelic mom or whatever. And so, like, especially in the South, like, I noticed, like, people are so used to, like, those types of family systems to where they are brainwashed into belief, and also due to Western American culture, that it's impossible to survive and do anything for yourself if you're under 30 or 45, which is really interesting. So, like, there's also this idea that, like, I have to be decades older than I actually obviously am, because it's not possible, which also goes into the whole thing of what people rather believe, because people rather believe that I'm like decades older than I actually am, and people also it's like the La La Land to go to sleep at night stuff, and then also the American Pride thing that goes along with that. So I'm trying to think, what was the other thing? Then also the fact that Jezebel teaches you Jezebel teaches you to become dependent on her, or codependent, really. So, like, you get infantilized, held captive, you're not allowed to go outside, you're not allowed to go to school, probably. Not that the fake education matters, but just, like, being around other people and seeing, like, how other people socialize and just stuff like that. That's, like, one of the main parts of school, I would say. So you're not allowed to do any of that. They're telling you that you're retarded and insane, and so you'll never be able to do anything in life. You'll never be able to go to school or get a job because you're so retarded. You're going to be, I don't know, you're going to fall and trip on nothing and bust your face open at the interview, and you're not going to get stuff like that. The abusers will tell you to try to convince you that you'll never be able to do anything. It's actually kind of funny because they really will tell you some crazy bullcrap like that. As soon as you get in the interview, you're going to fall and bust your face, and you're going to forget to put on pants, and you're going to go in there half naked. Stuff like that. In fact, I still have some screenshots of some supportive messages I got about a similar situation I was going through. Yeah, my blood sugar's all over the place, but I'm just going to keep going because I don't even have time to edit anything out. Because then I won't release this till like 2 weeks from now. But anywho, so crap, what was I saying though? Oh yeah, but the point I was getting at though, Jezebel keeps you from knowing how to do anything. so that way you can never get out. That's the real goal. That's why you'll notice that like a lot of abused people these days aren't allowed to go to work, and if they are allowed to go to work or they're forced to go to work, they have to give their money or all their money to their mom, or it all goes towards paying their parents' bills or their parents' habits and the mom's boyfriend's cigarettes and stuff like that. That's also really common these days. Like people say things like, oh, well, you shouldn't leave before 18, as if there's a difference between 18 and 16 and 17 and 19, which there isn't. But people say things like that because of the 18 obsession, which I talk about in my most recent video. But it's also like, I mean, you can get a job younger than that, but realistically, as long as you're under like 25 and 26, there's going to be a lot of like ageism and stuff when it comes to getting hired, especially if you're melanated. It'll be even worse. And especially if you're a dude and a melanated dude, or well, really if you're a melanated dude, it'll be even worse. But it's like, no matter how old you are, like if you're in this type of situation where you're not allowed to work or whatever, it's gonna cause some issues. And what else? Oh yeah, and like even if you're younger than 18, like even if you're like 14 or 16, people say things like, don't run away until you work a job and save up money, or if you do run away, make sure you work a job and make sure you're working age before you leave or before you get kicked out, as if like you can really pick when you get kicked out. But it's like, one, if you're going to be reported as a missing person, you're not going to be able to work, and even once you're 18 plus, depending on what all is put in your missing persons report smear campaigning, it may keep you from being able to get a job regardless, because it'll be like just really smear campaigning and pretty much be character defamation. But that's kind of another video. But anywho, it's like, there's just a lot of things that could keep you from being able to get a job, but oftentimes these days especially, abused kids are not allowed to work, and it's because of the abuser trying to hold them captive. Like, I don't think people actually realize how many people are fighting to get jobs well into and past their 20s, and their abusers are literally holding them captive and stuff like that, and won't let them even use a microwave by themselves. And then you see Chinese kids cooking that too. So, but anyways, what was the other thing with that? Oh yeah, so another thing. I noticed that, like, I've said this before, people who are allowed to work a job before becoming, like, full-blown homeless, or just from a young age, typically do better when it comes to, like, surviving in the matrix and the systems. Like, I just noticed that, and I don't really know exactly how to explain it, but I noticed that, like, people that are allowed or figure out some way to work a job starting at 14 or even younger than that, they often, like, are able to actually save up money to escape their abuse situation, or they're able to, like, work a job even when they get older. But I noticed that people who don't get to do that, it's like, once they end up out here, especially because of, like, a lot of stuff with homeless discrimination and just, like, homeless energy, which I talk about a lot in my Why People Are After You Zombies playlist. Like, once people start picking that up off you, the orphan energy / homeless energy, they don't really want to hire you anyway, so it's kind of like whatever at that point. And then it's like, you just get to a certain point where, like, you have too many health issues and too much stuff going on to even, like, really work a job, or even if it's not that, you just can't get hired anymore, and, like, then it's kind of whatever. But people who are able to save up before, like, ending up out here, they just have a different situation. Like, they're more likely to get out of homelessness, or just, if possible, not be homeless at least once they, like, get to a certain age, especially if they're never reported as a missing person, because then they can maybe find somebody that'll rent to them even under 18, although even getting, like, an apartment rented to you under 25, 26 could cause, like, it could just be really hard. But it's like some people, especially more so in the past, like decades ago, were able to find apartments and even rooms at 16 and 14 easier, but that's kind of hard to do these days. Even 19, that's, like, kind of whatever. Especially if you don't really, really have the money. So there's also that part. Like, if you're not, like, a tech bro and making like $100,000 a year, then it could still cause some issues because they feel like you don't really have enough, or you don't have anybody to sign with you. Like, I knew a girl who was 14 once, who had to work a full-time job and was a full-time student, and all her money went towards her mom. And of course her mom didn't feed her either, and didn't buy her clothes or any of that. So it caused like a lot of issues, and I met plenty of people like that actually. But still, they're able to like gain the work ethic from a young age to be able to pull it off. And they also learn how to like pull off pretending that they're not in the bad situation that they're in. Or maybe you get lucky and you find a boss who actually cares about your situation. But a lot of people don't really want to deal with people's bad/abuse situations, and they don't want to get involved. But anywho, overall, just like it says in that comment that I'm going to edit in with that clip at the beginning, I guess, people are literally designed, well actually that's not what this said, but I'm saying this because this is a known fact. People are designed to pretty much survive and not accept death. So if you throw a 7-year-old out on the streets, I mean, they're gonna survive. But the funny thing is, like I said in the why Americans Hate Mark Later video, if you record stuff like that and make interviews and documentaries about that in America, people will say, oh, this is fake because this doesn't happen in America. Or they'll say, just call the police. Or they'll say, this is illegal, you can't record minors, or stop recording homeless youth even if they're 18 plus. Or stop recording youth who have like been trafficked and stuff like that. But realistically, the thing with that is people just don't want America's dirty laundry out there. And then people will say things like, well, they can record interviews and documentaries like that in other countries because they don't have laws in other countries. But in America, we have laws, which I know some people like hear this and be like, what? But this is how Americans think. A lot of Americans, due to American supremacy in general, believe that like other countries have no laws and people are just like walking around, I don't know, biting people's heads off or something like that. A lot of Americans do think like that. So, like, in fact, when I went to Manhattan, that possibly J3W, but either way, European, retired or either active FBI agent or something like that. I don't know, detective, I mean. He was a detective. He was telling me about how dangerous New York is, and when he went into like the reasons New York is dangerous, he didn't like talk about the real stuff going on there. He was like, it's because crap, I think my blood sugar's dropping, but he was like, it's because they come from countries with no laws, and they don't know how to drive because there's no laws in their countries, and they're driving down the wrong side of the road and you're gonna get ran over. And it's like, there's more serious stuff going on in New York than possibly getting ran over by a quote-unquote alien. So I guess the UFO is gonna like come hit me on the ground or something. But yeah, so I'm trying to think of what else I could throw in with that, because I know I'm forgetting stuff. Okay, so another type of person to watch out for, which this may come out drifty because like blood sugar stuff, and then I start like breathing and talking weird and stuff like that. But so pretty sure I mentioned people like this before. The white savior complex people, not even just like the liberal covert and subconscious racist ones, but white savior complex people in general, which white women are going to do this pretty often, more so than the men. The white women who will call the police or will be like, well, what school do you go to, and what grade are you in, and how are your grades, and have you been doing your homework? I have white women do this stuff to me all the time. The reason they're doing this is because, especially if you're like seen going to like, I don't know, like a soup kitchen or something like that, they're looking for somebody to get in trouble. That's all that's about. They don't give a crap about you. They're looking for somebody to get in trouble. They're hoping that you have some black parents, or more so, maybe like a single black mom somewhere, that they can get in trouble and get you put in CPS and have you in CPS getting trafficked to the White House. And that's why they're trying to get in your business, and they're probably dead wrong about whatever they're assuming anyways. But yeah, so if white woman ever does that whole, oh, what's going on, have you been going to school type, just don't even play that game with them. And like I've always said, it's funny how, like, when you're in the abuse situation and you're asking for help and you actually need help, it's none of anybody's business. Nobody cares. That's between you, your mom, and your dad. You're beautiful. Keep smiling. Just go to some psychiatrist. Go to some doctor. Go to the emergency room and ask them for help. That's the mandated reporter's job. What else? Call the police. If this was really happening, you would have been dead. Although that's not really that common because, as I always say, in every abuse situation, everybody around always knows. People just don't care. But people say those different things, and like, people even tell you straight up, I'm not going to help you. That's your own little situation. You deal with that. And I don't need to be stressed out with all your bullcrap. Stuff like that people will say. But when you save yourself, all of a sudden people come out the woodworks talking about some help, and the Lord told me, and what other examples? Like, I want to help you and you need to do this, and if you really want to help you with that, and if you really wanted to help yourself you with this, and you need to go to CPS and get help from them, and if you really wanted a better situation for yourself and you didn't want to be a bum, you go to CPS, or you go to this place, or you go to some youth program that doesn't exist, because there really aren't a lot of those in America due to ageism, especially in red states, but well, especially in the South and East Coast in general. Like, the only youth shelter I've ever seen in the U.S., not saying that there aren't, like, possibly other ones, but the only one I've seen in the U.S. was in Oregon. And when I found it those couple months ago, or those few months ago, because I don't really think it was that long ago, because it was before I came where I'm at now. But when I found that, it was like, I was shocked because I didn't really think that they existed. And it wasn't even a place you could, like, stay at all day. It was still, like, you go there at 8 p.m. and you have to leave at 8 a.m. And if you leave 1 minute late, you're banned for a night. If you leave 2 minutes late, you're banned for 2 nights, and it just keeps going. I mean, it's something, but it's still kind of like, but I'm not going to get into that, though. But anywho, point is, people want to play fake hero when they know, of course, they're not going to do anything to really actually help you. But people want to play fake hero when you make the decision to save yourself. And them playing fake hero is them trying to get you funneled back into whatever abuse situation you escaped. Which can actually go into the next thing. People that see themselves as being a hero for calling the police on you or whoever, because they feel like they're quote-unquote getting you help. This can also go into a racial side, which anybody who's calling the police and pretending that or claiming that they're doing it to quote-unquote help somebody. And I mean, like, a situation where, like, any situation where somebody isn't, like, I don't know, about to, like, pass away or be unalive or something. Like, obviously I don't mean somebody's, like, holding a G into somebody's head. Obviously I don't mean that. But and the funny thing about it is that in a real life or death situation, people will be talking about some no snitch culture, or they'll be like, I can't call the police for you because that's none of my business. In situations like this, anybody who's calling the police and claiming they think that you're gonna get help or they're doing what they're quote-unquote supposed to do is either completely ignorant, or they're lying and they don't really want to admit that they want you in jail. So they're claiming that they wanted to help you as their excuse because they don't want to tell you how they really feel. So with the racial side, people will do this to, like, try to get you out of their areas because they don't want you there. Like, you're not really supposed to be in this town, and this is, like, whites only, really, or we don't want poor people here. Well, we'll just call the police on you, and then whatever happens, happens. So there's that side. And kind of like the situation when I first escaped my previous situation, and all that stuff went how that did, and law enforcement had forced me into that voodoo cult and all that stuff that went along with that. In that situation, I was able to get away, though, luckily, but this lady had called the police, and I told this other lady, and she was like, they're at this hotel, and the other lady that worked there was like, really, she called the police? And I was like, yeah. She said that she just couldn't see me out here, and she was crying and everything, talking about she had to do it. People like that they're stupid, pretty much. I don't know what else to say about it. Anybody that's claiming that they don't know if the police are there to take somebody to jail or unalive somebody is either stupid or lying. And as I've always said, never let people convince you that they're stupid. they're playing games with you, or they're playing games with their self, but don't let them do it. That's one example. People do not want you to save yourself. Random people will work together with the Lucifer effect as enablers, as enablers and flying monkeys to get you lured back into your abuse situation or whatever in the world. And these same people who will call the police will walk away and they'll tell somebody, I did a good deed today. No, you just tried to ruin somebody's life, or you did. People are just like, I don't know, I get why people in the CPTSD support group say things like, I'm terrified of people, and a lot of people don't get it, but I am. And it's like, I'm not scared of anybody, but I do understand why people get like that, because people definitely are scary. Like, I guess on some forgive them, they know not what they do type stuff. But anywho, another thing that goes hand in hand with that is oh yeah, I mentioned this before. This is also something that'll commonly be done by white people, or just brainwashed house nigger people under colonization, MK Ultra, melanated people who think that they're white. This is a really common thing that they'll do. Offer to give you something like food or whatever, especially like outside of a store. Like if you're saying that you're looking for a job or something, or you're busking for a job, they'll be like, okay, stand right here and I'm gonna like go get this phone number because this person is looking to hire somebody and I'm gonna give it to you. Or they'll be like, stand right here because I have like some chips or something I'm gonna give you. They'll literally lure you somewhere and call the police, and they'll typically never come back, just to have you waiting somewhere while probably watching outside of a window with a mean look on their face to get you locked up. You gotta watch out for that, especially when you're hiding from an abuser, especially like a rich abuser, like traffickers or a trafficking family, something like that. You gotta watch out for people like that. And it's like, sometimes it can be really hard to like tell who's gonna do stuff like that, and that's why you gotta have discernment. You can't trust people. And it's like, people are always talking about chomos and pedos and how you're being quote unquote fast and grown and you're gonna be some old man's quote unquote cum bucket. People who say things like that are actually these types of people that'll do things like what I just mentioned. They're the real dangerous people. And for me personally, as much as people talk about like all that other stuff, which law enforcement goes hand in hand with trafficking anyways, but for me personally, I don't know about anybody else, my biggest risk is ICE and other law enforcement, or more so martial law type people, military. They're my biggest risk. They're the people that threaten my life and safety and freedom all the time, and I get arrested every 3 months for no reason. So if anybody was going to do anything to me, it would be the police. It wouldn't be some random dude. It wouldn't be some random lady. Maybe some random white lady, maybe. But other than that, it would be law enforcement, which honestly the random white lady would probably like be a part of why law enforcement came and did whatever to me. But yeah, so there's that. I'm trying to think about what else I could say that goes along with that. Maybe that's everything, but I feel like I'm forgetting something. Okay, I totally forgot something very important, which goes into the whole La La Land thing. And I should mention this first. Now, back during my abuse evidence channels, there was this conversation I had with this lady from Malaysia. And I do not remember what all was said, not gonna lie, but I do remember this quote from her, which was quote unquote, it seems like everybody in America is living in their own fantasy land. And yeah, pretty much. Although a lot of people are waking up, like even quote unquote white people, they're waking up to things that they've been getting told for forever, which is that America is the system it is, pretty much. To summarize that without like going into a rant that's kind of irrelevant to the point of this video, a lot of them have been waking up for a couple of years now. And of course, quote unquote black people are saying things like, we've been trying to tell them that for years, but when we said it, we were just lazy. We just had a victim complex and all that stuff that people say. But I don't even really care for all the trying to prove myself, arguing, none of that. None of that. I'm not going to go into that though, because then I'll be somewhere else. But anywho. So yeah. Do not remember why I went into that. But what was the thing I was gonna say? Oh yeah, anywho. So, this was actually like 2 days ago or something. No, this is like, I mean, it was still a couple of days ago. Definitely in the past week. I think last Sunday, actually. And this also was one of the many, I know that you have some parents somewhere that care about you because everybody loves their kids type conversations. So many people say stuff like that, but anywho. So, this guy saw me sitting outside of this store. Well, not store, it was like some office building that he owned apparently. I honestly thought it was abandoned. And that's something that like can happen sometimes, and you gotta watch out for that. Like thinking that like some place is abandoned and then like sitting like on the bench there or something like that, and then actually it's just closed at that point in time. You gotta watch out for that. I've had that happen a lot with like churches and stuff. But that's another video. But anywho, so this dude was actually pretty nice though. I mean, it's like, and that's the thing with it though. Like I said, let me help you lunatics aren't necessarily like, well, I mean, they definitely have like a lot of evil type stuff going on, but they're not necessarily bad people either. And that's like the weird thing with it. I mean, well, nobody's good anyway, so there's also that, but it's a lot of stuff with it. It's hard to explain. But there definitely is a fake nice people side. But like this dude was nice, but like due to the fact that he still lives in that la la land, he's still unsafe, which goes into why most people are half safe or less than that. But anywho, so he was like, I'm not gonna call the police on you, but like if I did call the police, what would happen? And I was like, I just go to jail or I'd be told to leave. And he was like, well, it's not like being homeless is illegal or anything, so why would that happen? And it's like, this goes into the thing that I've said before. People who have safe family systems, or pretend that they do, and don't leave the house, or have never been in, like, situations where they're vulnerable and targeted because they're seen as the quote-unquote bad guy, really don't know how messed up the world really is. People who don't leave the house and are like that, or just have safe family systems and people to depend on, don't know how mean and weird people are. And it's like, not only that, but making a comment like that when being homeless was never legal, and aside from that, all the laws and the death camps, and it's like, where are people even at? It's like really interesting. Like people live in completely different worlds. Like there's no other way to put it. People who are in different situations with different experiences, it's like the blue pill, red pill thing. Not the new incel, feminist, misogynist, whatever in the world. Not that new stuff, but like the original Matrix movie type stuff. That's what it's like. Like people are literally in their own fantasy lands. And it's like, people don't care about things that don't affect them, and they have no reason to know or even believe in things that don't affect them or that they feel like don't and will never affect them. Like, there's no other way to put it. It's just like, it's like trying to explain your racial experiences as like, I don't know, a quote-unquote mix, because I don't like that term, kid, to your white mom or something. That's what it's like. It's kind of like that. I don't know, but it's just all really weird. People are just really weird. Like, that's a very wild comment to make. And it's so crazy because, like, if you were to, of course I didn't do this, but like if I was to go on and rant about how being homeless is never legal, how homeless people have been getting kidnapped for well over 20 years, but especially now by ICE, and they're being unalived and thrown in camps and stuff like that. Like, this dude would probably just label me off as a schizophrenic, paranoid person and say that I'm lying. And it's like, people are just really, I don't even know. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just like that thing where like people will be like, I was SA'd by my dad or my mom, and then by my teacher, and then by my neighbor, and then by whoever else. And people will be like, well, there's no way that everybody around you was a predator. Actually, yes, it is, because a lot of people are, but unless you visibly don't have anybody who gives a... if you don't visibly have no one who cares about you, and people don't know that you're unprotected, if this is even coming out right, you would never know that. You would never know how many people are predatory, and that really most people are predatory in some form or fashion. Because for somebody else to be up, someone else has to be down. But you never know that, because you have at least one person maybe who really like will protect you and gives a crap about you. Like one parent, one grandma, one something. Or you're pretending you do, or you just don't leave the house. And you're lucky enough to like not be getting essayed by whoever you're living with. Whatever in the world. Like, people just do not get it. And it's weird because people like, quote unquote, sleeping with their teachers and stuff is so common anyways, but that's a whole nother video. But okay, what else could I say with that? Okay, something else, which this may just be a homeless tip in general. This can kind of revolve around ages. Oh no, actually no. Before I say that, people who feel like because you're a child you should be with somebody, and then when they find out that you're not, or you're not giving them the info that they want from you, they like flip out on you, or they like avoid you because quote unquote you don't want help. So the part one to this, when you don't give somebody the info they want. So this is like a really common thing. And I feel like, well, let me not go into that because that'll make it too hard to explain. But for example, the Jezebel, let me help you lunatic lady, approaches you and she's like, so where are you from? Because I know you're not from here. And you don't tell her anything, or you just say you're from here, wherever here is. And then she rolls her eyes, curses you out, says you're a child, and then she's like, yeah, you don't want help, and I'm not going to try to help you anymore. And then she walks away, or then she like keeps trying to force info out of you. People like that, that's really common, which goes back into the whole control issues. Because overall, people, if you want to be honest, like I've mentioned before, since my first video, or at least, well, my first one on here where I mentioned like the homeless industrial complex, that may be the title, but I know it's like my first video, my homeless industrial complex or system playlist, I'm pretty sure. I mentioned how like one of the things about it is that due to the control issues and stuff, people are like jealous of you because they've been made to feel like quote unquote homeless people, whatever you're labeling off as homeless, have escaped the system that people have been raised to believe that they can't survive without being in. So like you've escaped the whole working all day, not having a life, and you're maybe traveling the world, which isn't really the stereotype of what people think of when they even think homeless, but more so the vagabonds and like slab city type people that get labeled off as homeless but really aren't. People will be like, yeah, you're a bum and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing because I was told that I had to do this to survive, and now I'm working a job I don't want to, and I'm taking care of a family that I never wanted. I'm raising kids I don't want in a house that I don't want that's too expensive, and I'm not doing what I really want to do, and you're not doing that, and so you're the bad guy and you're a bum. And it's really a jealousy thing. Like I said before, a lot of people want to be in my position, which more so when you're like different abused people I've met well into their 20s who like aren't allowed to do anything. Like the dude I met some months back who was like 25 or maybe even older than that, who was like your parents let you come all the way out to Sandy, Oregon and go to Mount Hood. I'm 25 and I just now started being allowed to leave the house just to go to work, stuff like that. Or the 21-year-old Muslim girl who was like telling me about how I know more about the world than she does, and she's never been allowed to do anything, and how like she can't even ride public transportation because she's a Muslim woman and they can't do anything, and she doesn't want to be a sinner, and all types of unfortunate cult bullcrap. So yeah, there's that. But anywho, so like people are also going to be mad at you because you've escaped your abusive family system. They're still dealing with their abusive mom. Like since I've been back in the South and back in quote unquote black areas, like I just heard so many over the phone conversations and arguments and all types of stuff of people like specifically talking about things that their mom's doing to them. Like a girl on the phone with some, no, not even on the phone, a girl talking to her friend on the bus about like her mom stealing her SSN number and using it to like do some fraudulent stuff. Another lady on the phone screaming and crying about how her mom stole a whole bunch of money from her and gave it to her boyfriend, and how she needed like to get a bus ticket to go back to her house because she had to go back to something about her needing to go back to work and pay her bills, but she let her mom borrow some money and her mom didn't pay it back, and her boyfriend has like 50 cars and stuff like that. People are going to want to control you and want you back in a bad situation because they're in there. They want you to suffer like how they're suffering. So there's also that. Or even that boy that came and approached me, which is my first experience in a long time, if that's even the word for it, with somebody around my age. But him and his brothers are friends, I guess, more so. Were like pretty much like asking me about where I came from and like why I'm outside and why I'm not at home with my mom because of cultural bullcrap. And of course, like especially like in an area like this, people aren't used to like seeing situations like I'm in, so they're gonna assume that like I'm way older than I actually am, and they're gonna assume that like I'm like kicked out or something like that. But anywho, the boy was like, me and my mom get into it all the time, and you can't be bad, and you just gotta work it out and apologize and all that bullcrap. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that him and his friends are quote unquote brothers, or the boys that Miss S was talking about when she was telling me that Jay was talking about when she was telling me that Miss S's ex-husband had helped her get her stolen car back, reported to the police, and the police found the boys who took it. Because like I had noticed that I hadn't seen them, and like the boy was already just on house arrest, and like this dude was telling me about it. This dude was like, how is he telling you to get a job and to get a car when he doesn't have a job or a car, and they come to me asking me for money and I'm homeless, and he's telling you all that, but he just got off house arrest. And that's another thing as well that I've mentioned before. Like due to the fact that I'm not allowing myself to be abused by people, I'm seeing this quote unquote bad, fast, and grown, but people who are actually doing real bad things like stealing people's cars, like they just get a pat on the shoulder and nothing said to them because they're still doing what they're mainly supposed to do, which is staying with their toxic mom or whoever. And you see how working things out with his mom went, because I heard that surprisingly the parents got charged too, and I know that really more often than not the parents don't get charged as well. So like I guess they're all in jail, the whole family's in jail, and all the friends and their moms too. So yeah, I guess that's whatever, because I haven't seen them in a long time at this point, so it makes sense. But it's a sad situation though. But it's like, and then I remember like the boys' friends were like, well, where's your job in your car? If you're asking her where's her job in her car. But that's the thing about it though, as I said before, street kids aren't seen as kids, so like people expect more out of you when you visibly don't have support or the stereotypical foundation. But it's like people
thing I keep joking. People feel like being outside is a bad part, but it's like, it's just the continually being treated like crap by society. And that's kind of unavoidable, to be honest. I'm not going to get into that. So, the part 2 to this, which is actually the first thing I mentioned, due to the whole adultism thing and the you're a child, you're a kid stuff, I've noticed that, like, people often assume that any older person that's around me is my mom or dad or something like that, but typically my mom or dad. And this has happened so many times, but in a more recent situation, I was sitting with a J lady when she was still in town, and a lady and her kids assumed that she was my mom and that we were, like, homeless together. We had just, like, moved to this town. And so the lady gave Jay a couple $. And a little while ago, I saw the kids again, although Jay wasn't with me, and one of the kids was like my mom, I can't remember exactly, but pretty much like my mom was wondering if you guys had a place to go, and we were struggling really bad at one point, and my mom has extra space, and you guys could stay with us. Now, of course, I'm not the one for moving on people anyways, but I did tell Jay about it, because actually, no, she was still in town at this point in time, because she only recently left. But when I had told them that, like, Jay wasn't my mom and that I had kind of just met her, it's kind of like the whole demeanor had changed pretty much. And that's a common thing, really. Like, once people find out that this person or that person isn't my parent and they're just somebody that, like, I was around at the time or that I know was talking to, but we're not related or any of that, after that, they don't want anything to do with me and never, like, approach me or talk to me again. Because, I know, like, the kids just seem to assume that, like, maybe I'm just way older than they actually thought I was. But with older people, they'll just be like, oh, so you're just out here doing what you shouldn't be, and there's somewhere you're supposed to be at that you're not at. And you're supposed to be with somebody, you're living with your parents, and you're not because you left or got kicked out or whatever in the world. And it's like, once they find out that whoever they thought was my mom or dad isn't, things just completely shift. And honestly, especially around here commonly, they don't even think that, like, the older dude is my dad. They often assume that, like, I'm quote-unquote fast and grown in HOE and that he's my older boyfriend and that I'm being taken advantage of by him, but it's my fault. Which, of course, I wouldn't go for that either, but that's what people assume. But when it's a lady, people often assume, oh, that must be your mom and stuff like that. So I don't really know what to say about that, but, like, that's another thing that revolves around people's control and weird culty culture. Like, once they find out that you're by yourself and you're younger, then it's kind of like, now they don't want anything to do with you and they're mad at you because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, pretty much. The complex or people will act like, well, pretty much they'll adultify you to, like, make themselves feel better about treating you like crap. So, as I mentioned before, I have no idea why, but, like, in mostly white areas, I noticed that, like, a lot of those people will accuse me of being, like, an 11 to 14-year-old boy. And of course, as I always say, I've always told people that I'm, like, the oldest age that I think people may possibly believe, but, like, for whatever reason, these people, like, refuse to listen to me. And it's, like, also another thing that I could say really quick and hopefully not forget the main point I'm supposed to be getting at. Anybody who's refusing to believe things you tell them about yourself, and, like, when you tell them one thing, they're like, yeah, that's not true because I feel like this, or you're lying about this, and that. No, you need to stay away from them anyway, because they're gonna be dangerous. They're most likely gonna be a let me help you lunatic. People who don't trust you will also often accuse you of having trust issues and being paranoid and schizo side thing, but I could throw that in there. So, one example, which is something that did happen. You're sitting near a store, inside of a store, and people keep accusing you of being an 11-year-old boy, regardless of you telling people that you're not. When they kick you out or tell you to leave, they approach you and say, sir, you have to leave. In fact, I've noticed, like, the most I've been referred to as ma'am and stuff like that as well being out here, and it goes into this complex. Due to guilt and stuff, which is also why people just avoid eye contact with people that they feel are, like, in bad situations, people will pretty much the whole making you a grown man or a grown woman to make themselves not feel bad about treating you like crap and even straight up torturing you. Like, for example, a police officer or some random person walks up to your sleeping bag and starts kicking you in the head or spitting on your chin and stuff like that. To make themselves not feel guilty about it, they'll just say, oh, you're a grown man or a grown woman, bum. Which, of course, as I was mentioning, I don't like the idea that one group matters more than the other. Or the whole, let's help seniors, or pretend we're going to help seniors but screw everybody else. Or, you're too young to be out here, but these older people, especially men, they should be out here because, quote-unquote, they should be taking care of themselves. I don't like any of those rhetorics. But this is, like, a really weird thing that people will do. They'll adultify you to try to not feel guilty about treating you like crap. So they have to make themselves not see you as a kid, but see you as just a lazy grown man or grown woman. Or if you're in an area where the Caucasian addict projection is big, they'll just pretend that you're, like, on some type of substance or something like that, or that you're just mentally ill, and blame you for that and use that as an excuse as well. Then they'll be like, here comes that homeless 11-year-old again, here comes that homeless 13-year-old black boy again, and here we go, and sir, you know that you can't come around here, and you better stay on that side of the road, sir, and stuff like that. And it's like, but it's like, I mean, maybe, like, to be respectful, like, I don't know, like a teacher, maybe calling students, like, I don't know, young man instead of, like, boy or something like that, so they're, like, being respectful. But, like, other than that, the most you're really going to get called sir and ma'am, it seems just like, in situations like this where, like, it's being used in, like, a weird mind game type way. Just like I just said, the most I've been called ma'am in my life is since being out here. And that's very interesting. But of course, also, like, especially in areas like where I'm at now, people are going to assume that I'm, like, way older than I am. And I mean, yeah, like, calling someone a young lady in a respectful way, it's like, that's whatever. But it's just like the sexual predator thing. Like, they'll call you
a grown woman or a grown man, or the whole you may be young but you're ready type stuff, to make themselves not feel bad for what they're about to do to you or they're trying to do to you. It's the same thing, really. It's the same mind game. And still, one of the most annoying things about it, I would typically tell people I'm 25 or somewhere around there, so it's like, and I would also constantly tell them that I'm not a boy, but to still approach me, calling me an 11-year-old boy, and then still come at me with the whole, sir, you gotta leave, sir, get a job type stuff. But aside from like the manipulative jezebel type thing, which also goes hand in hand with issues that a lot of Caucasoids and Negroes have pretty much, like I learned from ICE and Border Patrol in that racial situation, when it comes to white supremacy, often these types of people won't believe anything you say. And just like one white supremacist told me who worked for Border Patrol, shut the F up because I don't believe anything you say. I feel like that also goes back to this whole, regardless of what I kept telling them, in their eyes I'm still an 11-year-old boy. I wonder if like maybe they thought I was like trans or something, because like a lot of people, this is in Cali, a lot of people are trans, maybe they just felt like, it's just people are just really, really weird. People don't want anybody to do anything nice for you complex, which I mentioned this in I believe the part 2 video about the Let Me Help You Lunatic Lady Miss S, the whole Miss S and J situation. People that will call the police on you or ban you from places, and they'll ban you and not even tell you that you're banned because like maybe they see you too much, but also because like maybe they saw somebody give you something, or maybe like you're with an older friend than you have, and like for example, when I was in Cali, there's this lady that I would hang around sometimes, and like sometimes we would, well typically I would get her stuff, but sometimes she would like get me food or tacos, and it's like especially if that person isn't homeless too, or they don't know that that person is homeless. So like if the store's seen you before and they know that you're homeless or they think you're homeless, they'll like give you a mean look and they'll be like, look at you scamming people, and it's like that's what they're thinking in their head, and they'll be like, yeah, you can't come around here, you can't come back here, and they'll make sure that they do it when the older person isn't around, which this actually goes into something I mentioned before that I also noticed back in Cali. The best I was ever treated in these like store type settings was when I was with this one Irish Viking type dude. I met him when I used to sleep outside of this store. He was really nice, but anyhow, since people would assume that like he was my foster dad or whatever, like I didn't have the weird looks, or when people would give me looks, they would like try to do it really quickly or hide it or whatever. But like it's just really different in general when you're like with an older person, when you're a younger person in this type of situation, especially an older person who isn't homeless or doesn't seem homeless, which this dude wasn't homeless, but like if people, it's just really different. Like people play more games with you when you're younger. And it's funny because, like, especially in a place like where I'm at now, where people pretend that they think I'm, like, 38, it's still very obvious that, like, people don't do the same weird and rude things to me when I'm, like, with somebody older. Or at least they'll hide it for, like, when they see me another time by myself again. And that's why I say all predatory people operate the same. People are always talking about you're going to end up getting R-worded. People like that are no different from the R-worders. Like, sexual predators use the same manipulation tactics as any other manipulative game playing person. That's why it's all really funny. But yeah, pretty much they feel like you don't deserve like food or help or snacks, and so like they'll get mad at you for like somebody offering you something, and then it's like they act like you're begging for stuff or something. Like due to the homeless energy thing, like if there was one time I was just like sitting at the bus stop waiting for the bus, but unfortunately due to orphan energy, people just automatically are gonna look and stuff like that, which is a really bad thing and honestly not a good thing, even if it sounds good. And so like this one time recently, actually, someone had like came and gave me like a dollar or something like that, and it's like I actually tried to tell the dude I was just waiting for the bus, but I guess he was so worried about me like trying to ask for something else, he started walking away really fast. But that's on him, I guess. And that's another thing too with these helper people. People's help is like really weird and one-sided and fake. It's like the whole do what thou wilt, the good deeds outweigh the bad deeds Catholic type stuff. Cause like that's really fake, cause I tried to tell him I didn't need money, I was just waiting for the bus, but oh well, I guess. But even if that sounds good, it's like you want to be able to hide your situation and not give off orphan energy, but unfortunately it's like it's just there and there's nothing you can really do about it. But the bad thing about that is that signals to people that are going to want to treat you like crap because quote-unquote you're in a bad situation. It also signals to people that are going to want to like take advantage of you or try to in some form or fashion, because now they're like, oh, so maybe you're in a quote-unquote bad situation. And if the bus stop is near a store or whatever, it signals to the people in there to ban you and not allow you around because you're quote-unquote getting money from people and you're a beggar. It's all really weird. But yeah, anywho, people will get mad at you and ban you from places when they feel like you're getting help from somebody. Like, even if somebody, like, steps in and, like, quote-unquote adopts you or fosters you, and somebody, like, notices that, they may get mad at you for that, and they'll be like, look at you playing games with people, and you're using people, and you don't deserve this, and don't come here with people that are getting you food or stuff like that, because we don't want you. It's just weird. It's like they don't really have like a real reason or explanation behind their weird abusive ways. That goes into the whole people are zombies thing. I guess maybe I could throw in the racist Mexicans or usual California Mexicans that think that they're white, although some of them could like technically be considered Caucasoid, but they're more so Mongoloid. But that's another video. But the racist Mexicans that own that food truck that like had a lot of side motives with like quote unquote hire me, but they really just wanted me to eventually be a babysitter to kids they had that are my age, which didn't make any sense. But their grandma was tired of watching the kids, and that was their real motive. But then they like started getting weird towards me because of racial stuff that they were making up in their head. But anywho, when they were telling me about how they're Mexicans and they work from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. and I need to work like they work, or if not, I can't take care of myself and I need to quote unquote go back home. And they were just really weird, and it's like just really annoying and really stupid. But overall, people like that also, and it's kind of like people will say stuff like that, but it's like, I mean, if anybody really had somewhere to go back to, they wouldn't be out here anyway. So it's kind of like, what in the world? And then it's like go back home because I need somebody to help take care of me. But it's like, I mean, once you're past like 8, 9, even though like in the West people are still really coddled and infantilized and trapped in situations, you're still seen as somebody who should be able to watch yourself and stuff. So it's like, I mean, they said that like I'm still gonna have somebody holding my hand or something, assuming I have like a place to go back to, and then assuming that like somebody's gonna take care of me. And it's like, as far as a lot of people could care, like, I mean, I should have had my own car, house, and the German Shepherd years ago, which goes into the whole street kids aren't seen as kids thing, because it's like people who have parents and aren't like visibly homeless, nobody expects that stuff out of them, which is really interesting, but it just goes in the whole thing. You're only seen as a kid if you have visible parent. Maybe I could throw in as a last thing the people that assume I'm secretly 38, and then that also makes them feel like I'm like trying to like play people or make people think that like younger than I really am, as if anybody cares anyways. Like, especially in an area like this, and most people would tell me is to go home. So it's like, it's just like you really just can't listen to people. As I've always said, if you listen to people, you're going to be on a stripper pole somewhere, confused with, you're going to have a blonde wig. No, you're going to be wearing a wig that's blonde on one side and orange on the other. And you're going to be on a stripper pole with flip-flops on and basketball shorts and a crop top.